Dilraba and Stephen Chow spark new hope for China's film industry. China's film industry has faced a difficult period in recent years, with audiences becoming increasingly selective and many domestic productions struggling to create lasting excitement. But a wave of recent releases is beginning to challenge the idea that Chinese cinema has lost its momentum. One of the most notable examples is a new film directed by Stephen Chow, featuring Dilraba Dilmurat and a brief appearance by Japanese actor Takeru Satoh. The movie has attracted strong attention while also reigniting discussions about fandom, acting ability, and the changing tastes of Chinese audiences. According to the information available in the original material, the film had reportedly earned around 1.737 billion yuan by July 24th, placing it third in the cited 2026 box office ranking at that time. These figures should be checked against official box office records before publication. The film is particularly significant because Chow returned to the big screen after an extended period away from directing. That long gap created considerable expectations among longtime fans, many of whom naturally compared the new project with his earlier comedy classics. And that comparison may be one of the biggest challenges facing the movie. Older audiences who grew up watching Stephen Chow's most famous works may expect the same level of originality and humor they remember from his earlier career. Some viewers reportedly felt that the new film relied too heavily on familiar comedy elements and exaggerated performances. Younger viewers, however, may approach the movie differently. Rather than comparing it with decades of previous work, younger audiences can simply judge whether the characters, jokes, and visual style are entertaining. The supplied information suggests that children responded particularly well to the film's straightforward humor and energetic presentation. That difference in audience expectations could help explain why reactions have not been completely uniform. The story also has another important element. Dilraba Dilmurat. Dilraba has already established herself as one of China's most recognizable entertainment figures. Her influence extends beyond acting into fashion and commercial endorsements, giving her considerable visibility and market value. However, that success creates an interesting question about her acting career. A celebrity with enormous commercial demand may have less time available for filming. If an actor appears in fewer dramas and movies, audiences have fewer opportunities to evaluate their acting development. This is an interpretation rather than a confirmed explanation of Dilraba's career decisions. But it is an important issue to consider when discussing her current position. Her participation in Stephen Chow's comedy is therefore interesting because it gives audiences another opportunity to see her in a different environment. Comedy requires a different set of skills from many traditional dramatic roles. Timing, physical expression, rhythm, and the ability to respond naturally to exaggerated situations can all influence whether a comedic performance works. The supplied information also points to Dilraba's earlier experience with comedic and variety programming, suggesting that comedy is not entirely unfamiliar territory for her. Whether this performance will permanently change public opinion about her acting remains uncertain. One successful role cannot settle a long-running debate, but it can certainly add another dimension to an actor's career. The movie also attracted attention because of Takeru Satoh. His role was reportedly relatively short and appeared toward the later part of the film. Even so, Chinese social media users reportedly recognized him and discussed his appearance. For audiences familiar with Japanese entertainment, Satoh is especially recognizable because of his work in the live-action Rurouni Kenshin franchise. His involvement, therefore, created an additional connection between Chinese and Japanese entertainment audiences. But the larger story is not limited to one movie. Several other Chinese productions are reportedly performing strongly at the same time, creating an unusually competitive summer box office environment. Actinwation has become an important part of that competition. Ne Zha 2, for example, was described in the supplied information as receiving strong word-of-mouth reactions and, during part of the period discussed, generating higher daily box office revenue than the Stephen Chow film. That is significant because it shows how quickly audience attention can move between genres. A major live-action comedy does not automatically dominate the market. Animation can compete directly for the same audience. Science fiction is doing the same. The supplied material also discusses a Chinese science fiction film starring Huang Bo and Gao Ye. The commentator initially had low expectations, but reportedly became positively surprised after watching the movie during a preview screening. The response described in the source was strongly emotional. The film reportedly resonated because of its portrayal of collective effort, sacrifice, determination, and people working together toward a shared goal. Some online viewers reportedly compared the film with Interstellar, with a few even claiming that it was better. Those comparisons should be treated strictly as audience opinions. In fact, extremely high praise can sometimes create a problem for a movie. If viewers enter a theatre expecting a masterpiece comparable to one of the most celebrated science fiction films ever made, even a very good movie may feel disappointing. A more reasonable expectation can sometimes lead to a better viewing experience. The science fiction film also faces another challenge: competition from international cinema. According to the supplied material, the latest Spider-Man movie was scheduled to open in mainland China on July 29th, with Tom Holland and Zendaya reportedly visiting Shanghai for promotional activities shortly beforehand. A global superhero franchise naturally brings enormous recognition and audience interest. That means domestic science fiction productions have to compete not only against other Chinese movies, but also against some of the biggest international entertainment brands. This is one reason the current Chinese summer movie season is particularly interesting. The market contains comedy, animation, science fiction, and international blockbusters, all competing for limited audience attention. A film can be well made and still struggle commercially if its release date places it in an extremely crowded period. Another important development concerns film postponements. The supplied information states that the animated film mentioned earlier and the Chinese science fiction movie were eventually postponed after being shown in some form. The exact reasons for those changes were not established in the information provided, so it would be inappropriate to claim a specific cause. What can be said is that postponements can create additional uncertainty for films that are already competing in a crowded market. For the Chinese film industry, this competition creates both risks and opportunities. On one hand, audiences have more choices, making it harder for individual movies to dominate. On the other hand, the success of different genres demonstrates that Chinese viewers are still willing to support domestic productions when something catches their attention. This may be the most encouraging aspect of the current situation. The industry does not necessarily need every movie to become a blockbuster. What matters is whether filmmakers can continue producing projects that give audiences a reason to leave home, buy a ticket, and recommend the movie to someone else. Word of mouth can be especially powerful. The low-budget film mentioned in the original material is a useful example. Its reported financial performance suggests that a production without a traditional celebrity-heavy cast can still attract enormous attention if audiences begin recommending it. That challenges the idea that box office success always depends on famous actors. At the same time, star power remains important. Stephen Chow's name clearly carries enormous recognition, while Dil Rabba brings her own fan base and commercial visibility. Takeru Satoh adds another layer of international interest. The combination creates a powerful promotional foundation, but eventually, the audience still decides whether the movie deserves to succeed. This is also where celebrity fandom becomes complicated. The supplied material describes long-running online disputes involving fans of Dil Rabba and Yang Zi. These arguments have reportedly included comparisons over acting ability, successful dramas, awards, commercial value, and popularity. Such discussions should be treated carefully. There is no single objective measurement that can determine which actress is better. Awards can be verified, box office results can be measured, commercial partnerships can be counted. But acting ability remains partly subjective. Different viewers value different qualities, and that makes online debates particularly difficult to resolve. The same applies to criticism surrounding Dilraba. Some viewers may continue to question her acting, while others may consider her performances convincing. The important point is that her continued visibility means almost every major project can generate discussion. That attention has both positive and negative consequences. It can increase commercial opportunities, but it can also intensify criticism and fan conflicts. Claim that rival companies or organized groups are deliberately creating negative commentary should remain classified as speculation unless reliable evidence emerges. The supplied material raises those possibilities, but it does not provide enough evidence to establish them as facts. From the information currently available, the safer conclusion is that Chinese entertainment remains highly competitive and that major celebrities naturally attract strong reactions online. So, what does all of this tell us about Chinese cinema? It would be premature to declare that the industry has completely recovered. A few successful films cannot erase years of challenges, but it would also be too pessimistic to conclude that Chinese cinema has nothing left to offer. The recent examples suggest that audiences are still interested. They are watching major directors, They are supporting animation. They are exploring domestic science fiction. They are responding to unexpected low-budget successes. And they are continuing to follow major stars such as Dilraba. According to the information currently available, the strongest conclusion is that Chinese cinema may be entering a more complicated and competitive phase, rather than simply experiencing either a complete recovery or an irreversible decline. The coming months will be important. If more domestic films continue to attract audiences, the recent successes may begin to look less like isolated events and more like evidence of renewed momentum. For Dil Rabba, the Stephen Chow film could become another useful chapter in her career, particularly if audiences continue discussing her performance in a positive way. For Stephen Chow, the movie represents another test of whether his distinctive style can connect with audience beyond the generation that grew up with his earlier classics. And for the wider Chinese film industry, the real challenge is much bigger. Can filmmakers consistently create stories that feel fresh? Can domestic movies compete successfully with global franchises? Can audiences be persuaded to return to theaters again and again? Those questions cannot be answered by one box office number, but the recent wave of releases provides one encouraging sign. Audiences are still paying attention. And as long as filmmakers can continue giving viewers reasons to care, Chinese cinema still has room to surprise.